Hi, this is Andrew, and you're listening to Knott, a podcast. This is the second episode, and thought I might try doing little intros now. The first one I just read in my story, but I thought maybe we could try a little intro to give a little background or just something about what I'm doing. So first off, why am I doing a podcast? I guess the answer is why not? And that's Knott, spelled Knott, like my last name. That joke works better if it's written down and said on a podcast, I guess. But here we are. So, and if you don't know, my last name is Knott. Like if you've found me on a podcast app or something, you haven't read anything I've written, you should probably know that because it's like an essential thing you should know about me because it's key to my overall persona and it's literally my name. So yes, Andrew Knott, Knott. So I'm ad-libbing this and it's very uncomfortable. Like I'm used to reading the stories and I just read and, that works out okay, but this is a little bit more challenging. But we'll get through it. So, I figured if I could do this podcast and read some stories, at least, if I didn't feel like writing something new, it would give me something to do. But it is kind of funny that I'm doing it now because I don't even really listen to podcasts anymore. Like I had like podcast era a few years ago, but I also subscribed to like everything. Like I listened to Mark Maron, Bill Simmons, a bunch of NPR shows, like This American Life, a bunch of writing podcasts, like everything. And it got to the point where like the episodes just started piling up. I was be terrified of opening the podcast app. Like I had to psych myself up. Like, all right, you can do this. So I think it's always like a great sign when you have like a leisure time activity and you start to feel like it's going off to war or something every time you try to do it. I think that's a good place to be. So eventually I just gave up and quit altogether. So, but hopefully you aren't there yet with podcasts because that would be bad since I'm making one right now. But if you are, it's time to suffer and listen. I've kind of gotten the same way with TV and books. It's kind of getting kind of bleak, but anyway, like I used to watch, at least a TV show every now and then, but now it's like, nope, nothing. When I have free time, I'll like turn on the basketball game or something. And then that's about it. Books are the same way. I haven't been reading as much as I usually do, although I am reading a novel called The Wedding People right now, and it's really good. I recommend it. Really dark humor, and really cool premise. Yeah, but other than that, like when I have free time, I just kind of like to stare off into the middle distance. And now I guess record myself rambling and then reading stories, which I'm about to do. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Today's story is called I Had the Weirdest Job Interview Ever. Re-entering the workforce can be a real blood sport. I've been a stay-at-home dad for more than a decade, and I have to admit that trying to re-enter the job market after so long has been even more daunting than I expected. I guess it should come as no surprise. The last time I held a full-time office job, Obama was president. I had a flip phone. Yes, I was a late technology adopter, but still. And my interviewer did not ask me to pantomime ripping my heart out of my chest and displaying it to her like I was a gladiator in the Colosseum. So much has changed in the last 13 years. Admittedly, my experience with job interviews is not extensive. Although I'm on the depressing side of 40 now, I can probably count the number of in-person interviews I've had in my life on my fingers. And before my most recent interview, all of them had been mundane and uneventful. I always got the boilerplate interview questions about strengths and weaknesses, future plans, work history, and what I would do if I had a disagreement with a coworker or some other such nonsense. Prior to my interview last week, I had never once been asked to name my favorite meal to prepare or what I would do if a customer tried to bring a pet rat into the restaurant. I never interviewed for a kitchen job before, though, so maybe that's just how restaurant interviews go. One nice thing about this unexpected interview was I didn't have to dress up. I was pulled unceremoniously into the dining room from my kitchen where I was doing the New York Times mini crossword on my phone, snacking on chips and salsa, while pretending to unpack the dishwasher. I was clad in the same t-shirt and shorts I'd been wearing for a couple of days, probably, but it was fine because the interviewer was dressed in pajamas and her hair was a bit tangly. She asked me to sit in the chair at the end of the scratched and paint-splattered dining room table, and I pushed several dolls and a pile of markers out of the way to make space to rest my hands. I always get fidgety during interviews. Things started out somewhat normally. My interviewer asked why I wanted to work at her restaurant, and I launched into a heartfelt soliloquy about my love of the culinary arts and my passion for customer service. I don't know much about interview strategy, but I do know that stupid stuff like that is exactly what interviewers love to hear. She looked pleased with my answer and wrote something down in the notebook that was splayed out on the table in front of her. I couldn't tell exactly what she wrote, but from my vantage point, it most resembled a squiggly line. Next, she asked what my favorite dish to prepare was, which, if I'm being honest, was a very insightful question. I didn't hesitate. I waxed poetic about my grandmother's eggplant parmesan and how I used to putter around at her feet when I was just a small boy and dream of one day creating magic like Grandma did. This was a lie, of course, but everyone lies in interviews. As far as I know, my grandmothers never cooked eggplant parmesan. I don't think they were even Italian. The interviewer cut me off after about 10 seconds because she had heard enough, but I still felt like I was nailing it. However, things suddenly took a dark and unexpected turn. Act like you're pulling your heart out of your chest with your hand and show it to me, my interviewer whispered. From the change in the cadence and volume of her voice, I could tell she was breaking protocol, but she was clearly trying to help. Even though I was a bit taken aback by the request, I complied. Anything to land this job. I must feed my family. Put my heart into it, quite literally, groaning a little to add some pizzazz as I pried my chest cavity open and plucked out my heart. I held my hand out to my interviewer, presenting the symbol of my passion for restaurants and hospitality management. I was expecting a positive response. I did not get one. My interviewer looked shell-shocked. Her eyes went wide. I think she let out a small gasp. Then she took to her notebook with great intensity, scribbling away furiously. Well, that's it. I was finished. My hopes of landing my dream job were circling the drain. I might as well have torn my real heart out of my chest because I was pretty much dead anyway. I was about to slink away in shame and then, okay, follow me to the kitchen. I'll show you how everything works. My interviewer had finished writing her novel about my insanity and was looking at me again with an eager and not quite as horrified expression on her face. Wait, I got the job? I asked. Yes, just no cooking eggplant. Deal. I followed her around to the other end of the dining room table where the kitchen was. It was well outfitted with a compact oven and a purple cauldron, everything I needed to hopefully earn our humble establishment its first Michelin star. It was quite a roller coaster of emotions, but I think the interview process always is. I guess the take-home lesson for any stay-at-home parent looking to get your career back on track is to be flexible. Go with the flow. Don't be afraid to stretch the truth a little to highlight your unique experience and skills. And most importantly, if your interviewer asks you to perform a cardiectomy on yourself, just do it. What's the worst that could happen? In late-stage capitalism, it's work or die. You might as well take care of it all in one go. Thanks for listening to Knott, a podcast. For more, check out my Substack, andrewknott.substack.com. And you can follow me on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, at aknott21.